The relentless pushback by Ukraine against the invading Russian forces continues to gain massive momentum as more occupied territory is being reclaimed. Strategic settlements and vital high grounds are being taken back by the brave Ukrainian soldiers who are fighting for their sovereign national freedom. The Russian forces remain in a state of complete disarray following the sudden shutdown of Starlink, and they simply have no effective answers. What the world is witnessing right now is a powerful strategic shift that Vladimir Putin and his top military generals never expected to come. Even though Ukraine is currently planning for the upcoming Russian spring offensive, the military command clearly has a much bigger fish in mind. The strategic land bridge between Crimea and Russia is about to go down as Ukraine does something that could free Crimea forever. At first glance, the bold claim about the liberation of Crimea might seem like a strange or even an impossible military objective to achieve. As we watch Ukraine retake territory, it does not seem like the country is taking any significant steps toward freeing the Crimean Peninsula. The obvious focus of recent territorial gains suggests that Ukraine is primarily setting up to defend against an incoming Russian offensive this coming spring. While that is indeed the tactical reality, it also serves a much deeper strategic purpose regarding the eventual liberation of the Crimean Peninsula front. The deoccupation of so much territory is laying the vital foundation for reclaiming a peninsula that has become a critical Russian logistical node. Severing these links will utterly shatter the future attempts by the Russian military to take any more Ukrainian territory during the year 2026. The strategic land bridge between Crimea and Russia is the primary target for the highly advanced and motivated Ukrainian armed forces right now. If you stick with us, we will explain precisely why these current military maneuvers are setting the stage for the liberation of Crimea. But before we explore the future, we need to look closely at what the Ukrainian military is actually doing on the ground right now. While the global focus remains on diplomatic tensions, Ukrainian assault units have been making rapid progress in the southeast of their sovereign country. These elite units are currently advancing with great speed and precision toward the key strategic directions of both Orikhiv and the Zaporizhia region. According to recent reports from News Sky, Ukraine has managed to liberate several key settlements in the southeast as of early March this year. As reported by News Sky, the Ukrainian military has successfully regained several dominant heights from which they can monitor the enemy. From these strategic positions, Ukraine will be able to launch sophisticated drone electronic warfare and intense artillery operations against Russian invaders. These critical operations are already well underway and are currently forcing a massive Russian retreat on a truly unprecedented scale. The new Voice of Ukraine recently expanded on these impressive results by noting the official comments made by the General Staff. A methodical and relentless destruction of the Russian forces and their logistical arteries in the southeast has led to amazing results. As of right now, 9 vital settlements have been fully liberated, and 3 others have been cleared of the occupying enemy. Work is currently underway to liberate several more settlements as the Ukrainian forces retake what were once fortified Russian defensive positions. Since the beginning of these operations on January 29th, the mounting numbers have made for truly terrible reading for Vladimir Putin. The Russian military has suffered exactly 6,537 casualties, with 4,355 irrecoverable. 419 units of military equipment were destroyed, including 147 artillery systems and 240 vehicles. Furthermore, 14 armored combat vehicles and 108 drone command posts were sent up in flames by Ukrainian strikes. It is important to bear in mind that all of these staggering losses have been experienced by Russia in only one direction. Every single push that Ukraine makes costs the Russian military more equipment, and it is clear their defense is very weak. The Russian defense across the southeastern front is currently proving to be about as effective as a very wet paper bag. On February 20th, President Volodymyr Zelensky revealed that Ukraine had liberated about 300 square kilometers of land in the southeast region. This amount of territory is roughly equivalent to 115 square miles of land that has been returned to Ukraine. Even more land has been taken since then, leading Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky to make a very bold declaration on March 2nd. For the first time since the Kursk offensive in August 2024, Ukraine is regaining more land than Russia can occupy. These impressive gains are creating a ripple effect that will eventually impact the Russian control over the entire southern operational theater. The momentum of the Ukrainian armed forces is growing every day as they systematically dismantle the Russian logistical and defensive infrastructure. This successful liberation of territory is a testament to the tactical ingenuity and the unwavering resolve of the Ukrainian military leaders. If you are wondering what all this has to do with Crimea, we will be digging into that in just a few minutes. First, we are going to give you a little hint regarding the strategic importance of the key settlement known as Tokmak. According to News Sky, everything that Ukraine is doing right now is allowing the country to expand the existing gray zone. That settlement is important in its own right because it serves as a key logistics hub for the entire Russian Federation. But what the expansion of the gray zone signifies is that Ukraine is making a much deeper strategic push toward the south. Tokmak is the next target, then Melitopol, and it is at that specific point that Crimea finally comes into the equation. The logistical noose is being tightened around Russia's neck as the Ukrainian forces advance with great precision and relentless determination. You must not underestimate the vital importance of the gray zone that the Ukrainian military is currently creating in the south. These are specific zones that are not under the direct control of either the Ukrainian defenders or the illegal Russian occupiers. What the expansion of these zones allows Ukraine to do is constrict the gray zones later to fully reclaim the land. Occupied territories that were once firmly under Russia's control are now being pelted with heavy artillery, drones, and elite assault units. This intense pressure turns what was once a secure Russian zone into a volatile gray zone, where no occupier is safe. Then, Ukraine keeps pushing forward, engaging in clearing occupied areas within the gray zones to fully liberate the settlements and territory. As the Russian presence degrades, the Ukrainian military constricts the zones again and consolidates them under their own tactical control. So, Ukraine expands to constrict, giving itself a launching pad for the expansion of the gray zone even further toward the south. Then follows constriction, and so on, with the result being that Ukraine makes consistent and steady progress as it pushes back. To make matters much worse for Russia, Ukraine fills the gray zones that it expands and constricts with thousands of drones. These zones often expand at least 10 kilometers behind the recognized combat lines, and become absolute death traps for Russian military vehicles. Russian soldiers also experience great danger as they try to move equipment and themselves around these highly dangerous and unstable areas. The cutting off of Russian logistics significantly weakens their ability to cause damage within these expanding gray zones in the south. Ukraine keeps pushing forward, fortifying as it goes, while forcing the retreat of the disorganized Russian forces back to their borders. Unmanned aerial vehicles are key to this strategy and are now responsible for around 70% of all casualties in war. There is another critical factor at play that is currently allowing the Ukrainian military to make these successful and rapid tactical pushes. As the Russian forces are forced to withdraw, the concept of network-centric warfare has become the absolute foundation of Ukrainian success. News Sky explains the basics of this concept, stating that each unit acts as part of a single, highly efficient digital organism. These units receive crucial data from drones in real time, which is something that Russia is now sorely lacking in every battle. The recent Starlink shutdown has left the Russian forces in complete disarray, and they are unable to coordinate their defense effectively anymore. Reconnaissance drones constantly prowl the gray zones that Ukraine is expanding, providing high-quality video footage of everything that they see daily. This live footage is further supplemented by data captured by FPV drones that are conducting kamikaze strikes within the dangerous gray zones. All of this valuable information is poured into a central Ukrainian software system, which is famously known as the innovative Delta system. Delta is absolutely vital to the Ukrainian defense, providing a cloud-based platform for real-time situational awareness on the modern battlefield. This revolutionary system was created in 2021, which was just 1 year before Vladimir Putin launched his full-scale invasion. It allows all of the Ukrainian forces to see whatever their drones and reconnaissance units capture on the chaotic and modern battlefield. Movements of Russian troops are shared instantly across the network, as are the desperate withdrawals of their poorly equipped frontline soldiers today. Delta provides the necessary proof that Ukrainian drone strikes were successful or otherwise, ensuring maximum efficiency for every single military operation conducted. The constant presence of reconnaissance drones in the gray zones provides yet more proof that other forms of attack are working well. One of the best features of Delta is that it does not require specialists or specific hardware settings to access vital information. If you are in the Ukrainian military, you can access it on a laptop, tablet, or smartphone and gain instant access. Soldiers can view human intelligence along with satellite images and drone footage to coordinate their attacks with extreme tactical precision. Right now. This is exactly what we are seeing in the south and southeast of Ukraine, as the counteroffensive continues to gain more ground. Every push that Ukraine makes is being propped up by a constant flow of data to which Russian forces have no access. Ukraine can see what is happening on the battlefield, while Russia cannot, because of their advanced and highly effective network-centric warfare. This advantage will have a huge impact on Crimea, and we make this military show to explain how global power really moves. If you are new to the channel, please hit subscribe so that you do not miss anything that comes next in this story. Every mile that the Ukrainian military advances in the southern direction brings it much closer to the two key settlements of Tokmak. Both are currently under Russian control and provide access to key roads and railway routes used to supply the entire southern troop grouping. All of the supplies and soldiers being fed into that southern grouping come from the occupied peninsula that we know as Crimea. There is a vital land bridge between Crimea and the southern regions of Ukraine that Russia has used as a logistical lifeline. For years, the Russian military thought that this land bridge was completely safe, because it was guarded by miles of occupied territory. This distance made it nearly impossible for the Ukrainian armed forces to gain any sort of effective fire control over the bridge. As the counterattack heads deeper into the south, Ukraine edges closer to taking Tokmak and Melitopol, which would change the entire situation. Taking these cities would give Ukraine the ability to establish fire control over the Crimean land bridge and choke the Russian logistics. Before we dig deeper into these impacts, we must cover how crucial this logistical lifeline has been for Putin and his forces. David Axe highlighted the critical relationship between Tokmak and Melitopol way back in August of the year 2023 for Forbes. Tokmak controls the vital roads to Melitopol, which meanwhile controls both access to the Black Sea and the main overland supply lines. These are the essential links that Ukraine is slowly severing with its consistent push deeper into the south of its mainland territory. Russia spent almost a decade militarizing the annexed Crimean Peninsula ahead of the full-blown invasion that Putin launched in early 2022. The peninsula was never intended to come under direct fire because the plan was to use the land bridge for shuttling troops. This initial flash invasion is what led to the occupations of Melitopol and Tokmak and several other key settlements in the south. Since early 2022, Crimea has played a key logistical role in the war because of the strategic southern land bridge. The peninsula also provides access to the Black Sea, which is another vital logistical artery that Ukraine has successfully cut off recently. Constant missile and drone strikes against Russia's Black Sea fleet have reduced its original power by about 1/3 of its strength. This fleet has been forced to withdraw so far from the tactical waters that it has almost become a non-factor now. That leaves Russia with the southern land bridge from Crimea as its only remaining reliable logistical route for moving its heavy equipment. If Ukraine can advance deep enough to gain fire control over the bridge, it will absolutely shatter the entire Russian southern forces. This strategic achievement could also mean the end of Russia's secondary use for the peninsula as a tool for launching missile terror. Russia has been launching missiles at occupied Ukrainian territories from Crimea, but Ukraine is countering this with repeated strikes of its own. Gaining fire control would enable Ukraine to launch far more intense missile and drone strikes against the remaining Russian positions in Crimea. It is all about degrading the Russian war machine to the extent that their southern army is sufficiently weakened to the point. International military observers note that success in the south creates the prerequisites for a much broader deoccupation of Berdyansk and Mariupol soon. Russia is very aware of the increasing threat that Ukraine now poses to these settlements as it advances deeper into the south. The Russian military has been fortifying its positions within these towns so that it is ready for what comes next, very soon. Attacks on ammunition depots in the southern regions are hindering Russia's attempts to fortify their defensive lines against the incoming Ukrainian forces. The more territory that Ukraine manages to take in the south, the more launching pads it has for future attacks in Crimea. It is unlikely that Ukraine will send ground troops into the peninsula immediately, because the choke points are heavily guarded by Russia. However, greater control over the land bridge provides more sites from which Ukraine can launch its own highly effective drones and missiles. Ukraine is pushing to make Crimea such a non-factor that Putin's control over the entire peninsula will slip as a result. This strategy is prompted by necessity. As commanders report, they are operating at low capacity when it comes to manpower on front. With its tech, which includes air, naval, and ground drones, Ukraine is making up for these difficult manpower issues on the battlefield. Ukraine is using what amounts to a robot army to shatter Russia's resistance, making it far easier for assault troops to work. The sheer scale of Russian death in southern Ukraine clearly shows that the sophisticated Ukrainian technological plan is indeed working very effectively. Technology is defeating outdated Soviet tactics, even as the brave Ukrainian military currently labors under a significant and challenging manpower crisis today. Ukraine is also creating a similar kind of crisis for the Russian invaders, who have grand plans to advance all over territory. Russia simply will not be able to create a strategic reserve that is anywhere near the size needed for large military advances. By 2026, Russia is losing more soldiers than the Kremlin can recruit, with an average of 40,000 losses every month. Every scrap of territory that Ukraine retakes is territory that Russia will have to fight very hard to regain during the summer. If Ukraine manages to gain fire control over the bridge, the slow degradation of the Russian Southern Army will become completely inevitable. The systematic network-centric warfare that we are seeing today brings the liberation of the southern regions much closer than ever before. If you want to see more updates on this war, please like this video and subscribe to the War Tech Pulse channel. We thank you for watching our analysis, and we hope to see you again in our very next video about modern warfare.